So the biggest network is currently Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has less applications built on it than Ethereum does, but it has more users. So it's immensely valuable. It has the store of value proposition that most people are familiar with. What is interesting is adoption effects seem to repeat themselves. It seems to be a human behavioral thing. So if you look at this next chart, Bitcoin now is basically exactly following Bitcoin 2013 in price structure. It's weird. And this is not a chart I've just pulled up today. I've been following this for a year and a half once I first started discovering Metcalfe's law. And I'm like, bloody hell, this is weird. But it gives you a rough idea. I don't expect it to be perfect, but it gives you a rough idea. And what I'm expecting is a gigantic rally into year end. And we'll talk a bit about an extended cycle in a sec.
It's a spooky chart. It's a fractal chart. It shows the self-similarity of growth within Bitcoin at different points in the adoption cycle.
Yeah, and if you remember, 2013 was a hell of an adoption cycle. It was the initial one, and it had some violent moves. It's kind of suggesting violent moves. You know, just by using that chart, it gets me somewhere like 300,000 Bitcoin price range. Okay, that's above most people's expectations, but I don't see any reason why the chart's not going to work. And we'll come a bit more about how this cycle plays out in a sec. But the other killer chart is once I start discovering Metcalfe's law, I start realizing that Ethereum's exactly following Bitcoin's last cycle. And it's like, oh my God, this is spooky. I mean, I've got it actually on my Bloomberg in real time, and it almost works. Tick for tick. I've never seen anything like it. And that gives a cycle projection for Ethereum of 20,000. And again, I actually think it's going to overshoot. But I thought, well, if my logic about Metcalfe's law is right, then these layer ones that we'll talk about later should also fit. And bizarrely, here's the chart of Solana against Ethereum in the last cycle. When Ethereum was the darling, the new breakthrough, it's exactly following. And the same is true of Terra. It's exactly following. It's like, wow. So as these different protocols get adoption, they're all behaving in the same way. While Bitcoin is repeating its early cycle of massive adoption. So for me, this is super interesting. And again, I don't expect these to be perfect, but they're contextualizing network adoption, which is, I think, everything in this space for the time being, until we start moving into some of the other things. So how do I think this plays out? Because that's what everybody cares about. I honestly think we're going to have a ridiculous year end. But here's the rub, is we've got different people, actors in the business now. So if you are BlackRock or you are Tudor and you have Bitcoin at end of year, if you are BlackRock, and let's say I'm right and Bitcoin goes up 4x into the end of the year or 3x, you are going to rebalance and sell some Bitcoin. If you are Tudor, you come into the end of the year, you want to lock in your gains because you get paid your annual performance fee in January, so you will probably flatten out your P&L. So what happens is we might see selling towards the end of December, which the market is going to go, the cycle's finished. Because everybody's kind of expecting a December end, because it was 2013 and 2017 where the Bitcoin cycle ended in December. However, I think the structure has changed. I think there's a couple of things going on that will elongate the cycle. One is everybody is onboarding. The more the price goes up, the more the institutions onboard. Institutions are weird beasts. They tend to operate quarterly. So you come into January, everybody who's got approval is going to start onboarding and allocating January, February, March. So that sell-off from the rebalancing will be bought by the new institutions entering the space as they increase their allocations. Additionally, hedge funds have a brand new P&L January 1st. And what they like to do is put on risk. And this will be the bet that they'll put on. So my guess is we see more of that, and that drives prices further than we expect. I'm kind of thinking there is a probability, a reasonable probability, call it a 30, 40% chance that Ethereum gets to 40,000 and Bitcoin, whether it gets to 300 or 400, I don't know. And there's even an up chance of more. I think we've got a spot ETF that comes in the middle of that, and probably an Ethereum ETF that comes. Then we've got the other big game in town, which is the fact that Ethereum has no supply. There's about 10 or 11% of all available Ethereum on exchanges. Everything else is locked away in smart contracts, cold storage, DeFi, NFTs, and then staking. Because everybody wants the ETH 2.0 to come, so everybody's staking their ETH for the yield. And that takes it off and locks it away until after that. And then that ETH comes onto the market gradually. So I think the cycle probably goes on till the summer. I think almost certainly till March, but possibly to the summer, which will give us higher prices and a different cycle structure than we've seen before. I could be wrong. I'm not betting the entire ranch on it, but that's how I think it plays out. And if I'm right about the network adoption, then these other layer ones like Solana, Terra, Avalanche, Cardano, and some of the others are going to be super explosive. But in a risk-reward basis, they're riskier. They're not as deep a network as Ethereum is. Ethereum, to me, remains the best bet in the world from a risk-adjusted standpoint. It may not do the most in price of all, but for a major asset, my guess is it gets pretty close to Bitcoin's market cap. So I think it probably, in the end, somewhere doubles in relative valuation versus Bitcoin. I don't think the market quite expects that, but maybe that kind of short period of the flippening would be the end of the cycle when, everybody punches the air, all the, the Bitcoin guys get pissed off because, Ethereum's outperformed, and then we get a larger correction. But anyway, that's how I see it. And that's a lot of work that I've been writing Global Macro Investor, in Real Vision Pro for Macro Insiders, from speaking to people, understanding the structure from people like, the on-chain analysis from, Will Clement and Willy Woo and others, looking at the technical analysts that we've had on Real Vision, Crypto Sniper, all of these people getting a distillation from Plan B stock to flow. And so I'm forming a whole macro view around the space, the next kind of 6 to 9 months in the space, from all of these kind of conversations that are happening on Real Vision.